It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, and I am not joined by anyone. I'm usually joined by head brewer Ralph Renault or one of our special guests, but I'm flying solo this week, and I am talking about a beer that I teased on an Old Favorite Friday video a couple weeks back. I said I was going to have another Bell's beer. Bell's has been the most featured brewery on Old Favorite Friday for good reason, and that's because I found a six-pack of Bell's Expedition Stout at one of my local stores a few months back, and I've been waiting to do it for Old Favorite Friday. I cannot tell you how much I love this beer. Sonnets I could write about how much I love this beer. This is one of the first Russian Imperial Stouts that was brewed in the United States. They claim on Bell's website that it is the longest production Imperial Stout brewed in the United States. It was made for the first time way back in 1989 when I was all of 8 years old when this beer was first made. And from the first time I had this beer, I fell in love. This is just, you cannot make a more consistent, more well-rounded Russian Imperial Stout. You can make ones as good. There's definitely ones that are as good, but you can't make one better. This beer has the perfect mouthfeel. Every single aspect of an Imperial Stout, from the roast to the dark fruit flavors, the hints of espresso. There's this really nice molasses, kind of burnt brown sugar flavor that's subtle. It's got plenty of bitterness in the back end to keep the beer well balanced. It's not just a malt bomb that's overly sweet. It just, I mean, you lay it down. If you're gonna make an Imperial Stout and you wanna make a great Imperial Stout, go get, if it's available, go get this beer, and this is the template that you should be building off of. It's one of the best, absolutely. This beer is something that I wish Ralph was actually here to talk with me about this week because of how much he loves Imperial Stouts. This is a beer that I have so many fond memories of. Back in the day at the Jupiter Beer Fest, Larry Bell would come down and he would always have a specialty keg of beer, and one year he brought the bourbon barrel version of Expedition Stout, and to this day I still think it's one of the greatest beers I've ever had in my life. Absolutely wonderful. Another quick story is Joel Codner, former head brewer at Barrel of Monks, good friend of ours here. He was nice enough to bring a 3 or 4 year old aged Expedition Stout over to my house one day when we were watching a movie, and I was just blown away at how well the beer ages. I mean, it just keeps getting better. I had never had the patience myself to age Expedition, so having a vintage Expedition was wonderful, and just goes to show you what a great Imperial Stout with a beer that has that kind of structure can do with age, and the flavors continue to develop and it becomes a completely different animal. Just as wonderful, just a little bit different, maybe a little tad bit sweeter as some of the roast fades away over time. So I highly recommend, if you still have this beer available. I got this, I believe, in September of last year, so highly doubt it's available around you, unfortunately. But the next time you see this beer, not only should you pick it up and drink as much of this beer as is appropriate and as safe, but you should put some of this beer down. Several of these bottles are going to go into my cupboard, and I can't wait to see this beer as it ages a little bit more. We like to talk about food pairings when it comes to beers like this. I recently had a duck in like a port wine demi-glace that would go really, really well. Gamey meats, fatty meats would go really, really well with this Imperial Stout. Always Rochefort cheese, blue cheeses are always highly recommended. I'd also think like a smoked brisket would go really, really well. I do also want to mention that there is, I don't know if they're using any smoked malt or anything like that, but I'm getting some smokiness. I'm getting all that great espresso. It's just so well rounded. And as this beer warms up, I'm getting more and more. It's another thing. Oftentimes you see people, in the beer industry, they're caressing their glass in this way. It's not because they're crazy. It's because they're trying to warm the beer up so that there's more aroma and more flavor. And that's exactly what you do with a beer like this. When it's too cold, it mutes some of those great flavors and aromas. And you really want a beer like this to be a little close to room temperature. If you don't like it room temperature, that's fine. But kind of right out of the fridge, it's just a little bit too cold to really do this beer justice. You need to give this a little bit of time to open up and to warm up just a little bit. Bell's, I doubt anyone from Bell's gonna watch this video, but if you do, thank you. Thank you for continuing to make this beer and all the beers that we've featured so far on Old Favorite Friday. We absolutely love them here. There's more beers that I have. I actually have another beer in the cooler from Bell's. I'm not gonna pull it out just yet because I wanna give other great beers that we want to do a chance. But You know, the classic breweries in the U.S. and breweries that were making beers back in the 80s and are still in production today and still doing what they're doing at a high quality is kind of why I do this. It's why I've been in the beer industry myself for 15 years. It's what we're trying to accomplish here at Barrel of Monks, is to have that kind of quality and consistency over a long period of time, not just to come out and have a new beer every single week. You know, those are great. Those are a part of a brewery and what we do. But when you can have these beers that are legacy beers that can be refined over a certain period of time, and then you can just use your skill and your knowledge as a brewer to hit the nail on the head every time and put out a great product consistently. I mean, that's everything. That's, like I said, that's why we do what we do and what our long-term goals are for Barrel of Monks. But thank you guys always for checking in with us on Old Favorite Friday. We really appreciate it. Please continue to give us recommendations of beers. You know, I bring out a lot of beers that I want to do, but we also take recommendations on a regular basis. We love hearing your comments and what you guys are thinking about these beers. If you like these beers, tell us. If you think we're crazy and the beers aren't good, you would never say that about this beer, but other beers, please do so. Please go around on the channel and look around at all the other beers that we've done, other great beers just like this, where we're having long conversations and just talking about what makes them special. And that's what Old Favorite Friday is all about. We hope to see you next week. Cheers.